Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool Transfer Show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. And I'm sure everyone saw the breaking news that started circulating yesterday, but we've actually got further updates today, and that is regarding Floren Wirtz possibly joining Liverpool Football Club. At one point, it felt like a pipeline dream for us, due to big deals in the past failing to materialize. But this time this year, it could be a different matter, as it looks like Wirtz has agreed to the move to the club. So, what we'll do today, we will go through some of the tweets that have been circulating regarding the top journalists on social media, and then we will delve into the player, and we can also talk tactically in terms of how I believe he will fit in the lineup. Feel free to get involved in the chat if you want to send your comments in. Also, if you'd like to call in, I have pinned a link in the live chat, so I'll get callers in towards the end of the show. So let's bring up the tweets that I'm sure got us very, very excited yesterday. I was out and about yesterday, so I was watching it on my social media feed, and yeah, I was definitely getting excited. So the first one that broke through was this one. So this was from last night, 6:31 p.m. Liverpool UK time, and it says Liverpool have made a formal approach for Bayer Leverkusen for Floren Wirtz after initial green light from the player. Liverpool and Bayer Leverkusen are in talks over a transfer fee package. Liverpool want a deal to be done very soon, not long saga, to avoid surprises. From what I've heard, they want to try and wrap this up before international duty, so that's next week, I believe. So do not be surprised if you hear confirmation that a deal has been agreed between the two clubs in the next 48 hours. He won't get a shirt number or anything to that nature, but he will definitely get sort of a confirmation from the official Liverpool website or social media account. So that would be a positive light for us. And then last night, uh, from Fabrizio Romano also said that Florian Wirtz has informed Bayer Leverkusen of his desire to join Liverpool. The contract agreement is done, sealed, as Wirtz only wants Liverpool move. Club to club talks already underway, as revealed earlier. Liverpool are confident that the deal could get done as soon as possible. Not a long saga. That's the key word there. Not a long saga. That's something that he's mentioned twice in both tweets. And earlier today, around 12:28, and this confirms that um, there is no other club. It looks like it's only Liverpool that are in the front runners and will be signing the player. The FC Bayern president Heiner confirms Florian Wirtz's decision to join Liverpool as next club. And in quotes, our director Max Aber informed me that Florian Wirtz is probably leaning towards Liverpool, says Heiner. So that is very, very positive news. And finally, from David Ornstein, um, who, I feel like we have to always take him with a pinch of salt because he has broken news regarding local transfers in the past and they haven't really come to fruition. But, in this situation, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And his tweet is Liverpool in talks with Bayer Leverkusen to sign Florian Wirtz. Communication channels open since Frimpong deal and ongoing for number 10. If agreement reached, would be club record acquisition plus most expensive German player ever, 22 years old, once LFC. So this is all positive, and I know some fans will be skeptical due to previous deals failing, but I feel like this one could be announced very, very soon. Also, remember the fact that the player was strongly linked with a move to Man City. Some actually thought, that that was going to be his destination, and because of that interest, he was probably already in the process of looking for a house because that's been the sort of storyline this last 24 hours is that he's been house hunting, but he's actually been doing that for a few months already because he thought he was going to make the move to Manchester, and Liverpool and Manchester aren't that far apart. So that's already been under works, and luckily for us, due to location, he's not had to do much work in terms of finding a new place. So that's a positive there. And another thing that I have to mention, which probably has gone slightly under the radar, is the signing of Frimpong. I know it's not officially, stamped on Liverpool's official accounts, but he's definitely played a part in helping Florian Wirtz make that decision, or he's definitely influenced him to make that decision because we've already seen sort of photos and video clips of them during their time at Bayer Leverkusen, and they seem to be very pally pally. They seem to be good mates on and off the pitch. And with Frimpong potentially being our first official signing this summer, probably spoke to him and said, you know what, this might be a, a project that you need to look into because Liverpool are currently on the up. You'll be joining a team that, is playing good football. They're managed by a fantastic coach in Arne Slot. They've just won the Premier League. So their ambitions are high right now. So having a mate like Frimpong already at the club definitely plays a part. 'Cause I do feel like with some players, if they know a familiar face, it helps them settle into the club very, very well. And with Frimpong, I know he's Dutch, he's a Dutch international, but he's fluent English. He's been born and raised in the UK, so he obviously the language thing is not an issue for him. And Floren Wirtz, from what I've seen in interviews, speaks good English, so that's a plus point in that regard. But he's got a familiar face, to get accustomed to the new surroundings and in terms of playing style, they know each other's game as well. So that's definitely going to be a plus point. So another interesting point that I've read in the last 24 hours is the fact that Florian Wirtz has had discussions with Bayern Munich. He's had discussions with uh, Liverpool as well, and he's probably spoken to both coaches to know, where he stands in terms of his long-term future. What's his best position? How are the team going to play? How's he going to fit into their plans? And from what I've heard, it's been something that he's been very impressed with in regards to Liverpool in terms of what Arne Slot's vision is for the club and for him in terms of the starting lineup or the way we're going to play going forward. But it wasn't the same when it came to Bayern Munich. He wasn't hugely impressed with Vincent Kompany's vision for him or his plans for him in the team. And that's what a lot of fans have said out loud as well because, they've already got Musiala, who's a similar type player. I know they can probably play together in the starting lineup, but they've already got a player of similar ilk. So maybe he didn't feel that value or that sort of strong support from the coach that you're going to be the main guy. Whereas Liverpool, we've not really had that sort of creative number 10 for quite some time. And don't want to mention his name, but probably since Coutinho. I know we've got Szoboszlai, but he's more, I would say, more of a number 8, where he's more box to box. He can play as a number 10, of course, but I feel like Wirtz is an out number 10 and can also play on the left like Coutinho did. And there's certain elements of his game that I feel like Szoboszlai doesn't have. So, for example, intricate passing and threading through balls in the final third, it comes natural to Wirtz and he does it in abundance as well. So, for me, it'll be very interesting to see how he fits into the Liverpool lineup, which I'll discuss very shortly. But it's very, very positive in terms of where Liverpool are right now. We've definitely not messed around, and I know a lot of fans have been discouraged by Liverpool's performances since we've announced that not announced, but since we've won the league title, and we haven't fielded our best team, and the players have gone to Dubai, the coach is celebrating in Ibiza. Uh, some people saying it's lack of professionalism, all that kind of stuff. But look, the goal and objective was to try and win the league title or challenge for the league title. We've done it in about 4 or 5 weeks in advance before the season concludes. So, is there a necessity for us to go all guns blazing for those games? In my eyes, no. You've met the deadline, as in you've achieved the goal, and you know you can take the foot off the pedal a little bit. And I also feel like, as silly as it sounds, the fixtures that we've played since winning the title, it's kind of like our early preseason fixtures, and I know that seems very harsh to say out loud, but that is how we're treating them because we're utilizing our squad a little bit more. We've tried different profiles in different positions. So, for example, Chiesa playing up top, that was an indication that maybe we're trying to get a striker that's not an out-and-out striker, but someone that's more of a false nine or more of an attacking midfielder but can roam around a little bit. So it's given us that kind of idea. Playing Szoboszlai in a double pivot, would that work? There's been different players that have played in different positions. And with Simical, I know in the Brighton game was playing a little bit more further up, making more overlapping runs. So, there's different areas that I feel like Arsenal is trying to identify to see what would be the right balance. Because we're not going to play the same way, in my opinion. I think we're going to definitely change our tactics a little bit so we're not too predictable. And that's probably been one of our negatives during the Klopp era. Every year, I feel like we were pretty much, apart from the last year or two under his regime, we were quite, you know, not predictable, but everyone knew how Liverpool were going to set up. So each year, I feel like you have to evolve and bring new ideas to the table and play in a different way, even if it's a slight change. It brings that unpredictability to the oppositions. So you know, teams are really trying to figure us out. For example, with the way Salah plays, he's going to play a bit more out wide because that's what he's done this season. But this new sort of proposed plans that we have with Frimpong on the right back position, bombing down that flank, Salah's going to be a bit more inverted and playing in that zone that I also likes to refer to. So for me, it's going to be very, very enticing in terms of how we play next year. We've been very aggressive. Like I said, we've treated the remaining games as preseason fixtures, and I also feel like we're using this period to try and sign as many players as possible. And then once preseason arrives, the focus will be more so embedding them into the team and then doing the groundwork to release or not release, release a bit hard to, sell the fringe players or players that are surplus to requirements. So that's what we've asked for over the years, get the business done early. So then afterwards, when we need to make sales, that can be done at a later stage because the way transfers work, you're not going to pay 100 and odd million straight away for that odd player. It's going to be structured. It's going to be done in installments. So if that is how it works, you don't need to rely on sales so early on. So for me, that's something that Liverpool will hopefully do this summer. And it looks like that is the sign right there that we're not going to rely on sales before we purchase players. I feel like that has delayed us in signing certain players in the past. And look, once this transfer window concludes, I will give my praise to Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes. At this minute, I haven't really heard Hughes' name in part of this. I've heard Michael Hughes being more involved than ever. So let's see. Once we get that news, I will give people their praise when it's due. I have no sort of pride or ego to not do that. I will give credit when it's due. But right now, the signs are definitely positive. And Liverpool are definitely heading in the right direction. Now, in terms of the transfer fee, slightly unclear because I think a lot of sources were suggesting that is going to be 126 million, which I think is roughly 150 million euros, which is, of course, definitely breaks our record. I think the highest we've ever paid. I think it's for Virgil, which was 75 million pounds. I know the Nunes deal originally it was 64 plus with add-ons. It calculates to, I believe, around 84 million pounds. So it depends in terms of how you look at it. Because I think with Nunes, I'm sure we didn't, all the clauses weren't activated. I know this season it might be because we won the league. They'll have to give them I think 5 million or something along those lines. But whenever we tried to sign a marquee signing, I think Van Dijk was probably the one that was a straight sort of deal. And with this one, 126 million. I know we've bid it for Caicedo a few years ago that didn't materialize, but that was an indication to say that we do have money in the bank. We can go out and spend big on the right player. And I'm very pleased that it works. I know some fans will disagree and say, look, we need a striker. Why are we not going for Isak? That's the kind of money we should spend on him. Unfortunately, I don't think he's a realistic target. He's one of my favorite players. That's the one that I've earmarked all year round. But I don't think they'll sell him. Obviously, it will also depend what happens tomorrow in the final day of the season. If they don't qualify for the Champions League, does that open the door? Quite possibly, but I can't see a world where we sign West and Isak. If we do, yeah, that's gonna be a meltdown in a positive way on social media, and I'm gonna be doing an impromptu show. It doesn't matter where I am, I will definitely be doing a show if that news was to be. But we'll wait until that time happens if it does. But in terms of the transfer fee, I've heard 126 million. I've also heard 110 million. So I'm sure we'll get details in due course. But even I still feel like 110 would you know this is a player that is, for me, one of the best players in his position in world football. We're not just signing a potential player. We're not signing someone that is on the verge of decline because they're a little bit older. This is a player that's just turned 22, I believe. Has been playing a lot of first team football over the years. He's a player that, fit into the first team very, very quickly. So for me, this is a player that was always on the verge of joining a top club. And I'm just pleased it's Liverpool, not because I'm a Liverpool fan. I feel like in terms of how he plays, he really much suits the way we play. And with Trent going to Real Madrid, I know it's not official, but let's be honest, we all know that's going to happen. Sometimes when a player leaves their club to join a Real Madrid, it could devalue that club a little bit, and maybe people don't think that club is a final destination type club where people use certain clubs as a stepping stone to join a Real Madrid or Barcelona. For me, Wirtz joining Liverpool changes that outlook altogether. That means if he's willing to reject Bayern Munich, there might be a bit of politics involved in that because I don't think Bayer Leverkusen wanted to sell him to Bayern Munich, and if they did, they had to pay what we're willing to pay, which Bayern Munich aren't able to do. But look, he's said no to Bayern Munich. His parents weren't pleased with how they approached the player and his family because the family are involved in the business deal, so they weren't pleased with their approach and probably done it in an unethical way because they involved the media and it presented the wrong sort of message that the player was definitely wanting to join Bayern Munich. Might have been the case at some point, but not in the way that it was communicated. So they haven't appreciated Bayern Munich's stance in terms of trying to sign Florian Wirtz. Man City, surprisingly, dropped out very, very quickly, but on the basis that I don't think they wanted to be involved in a transfer war in terms of an ongoing saga, which is strange. But that maybe that's something that Pep, didn't want to get involved, and he doesn't seem to be the most positive coaches right now because he said that look, if the hierarchy ends up getting him a big squad, he's willing to quit. So, that's a Man City problem. It's not a Liverpool problem, but I feel like regardless of the fee, it's going to be interesting to see what the final fee is in the end because it will definitely indicate where Liverpool are in terms of spending and how much money we would have to acquire other players. And speaking of acquiring other players, something that I read earlier today as well is that Bayer Leverkusen may want to add a player in this deal. Now, I know so according to reports, that after a goalkeeper, they're after a centre back and a striker. Um, could we offer a player in exchange? That's something we possibly could do. The goalkeeper one, of course, we've got Kelleher, that's available. You've also got Kwanzaa, who I think would be available in the market as well. Whether there's interest, I'm not too sure. Striker, we've got Darwin Nunes. If they want him, they can have him. But of course, I would want Darwin Nunes to join a club in Saudi, so we can get a good decent amount of money from him. Another player that has been mentioned is Tyler Morton because he was very strongly linked with the club last summer, but we decided to uh, stop the move, or we didn't want to negotiate any further because we wanted him to be part of the squad. So he's definitely available for a move. So I feel like that's someone, that we can definitely look towards. Just gonna go through some comments here. Um, Abdul, big up Abdul says we have Sobo, Mac 10, Elliot, Jota in that position as number 10 playmaker. We need an out and out number 9. We do, but with Wirtz, he can play in the left side as well. So I feel like that would be more suited for him as well. Just got a comment here from Wild Dead Wolf. Big up. He says, "Sup, bro? What's up to you? Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in." He said he plays 10, or 9.10, left wing, right wing, but center better. Alonso played him left and false 9. The false 9 was interesting. I do feel like it is a role we can see him playing there, but I don't think he'll be playing there as a mainstay position. It will depend on the opposition, but also it will depend on how this team set up. So I feel like it's definitely an option. kind of similar to how we played Luis Diaz this season, where we know he's a left winger, but he has played in a false nine role, so it has suited him in that sense. So I can see the same happening for Wirtz in this team. I think Wirtz is a direct replacement for Diaz. I think Diaz will be leaving this summer. The signs seem to indicate that will happen, and I see Wirtz playing on that left hand side a bit more. So that's something I'll present later on in terms of using the graphic. Um, Wild Dead Wolf says Barca are selling winger to get funds. Okay, Loan Rashford as Liverpool 185 million. I see. 85 million euros. So in terms of pounds, that would be about 70 million pounds. So it's not a crazy price. He'll probably end up in Saudi. Barcelona can't afford him, and that's their problem. But we do have interest in the player. So let's see what happens. Abdul says, hi, Ozzy, how you're doing? I like conscience, subscribe, big up yourself, Abdul. Um, Neil, big up yourself. Neil said Bobby Firmino role, maybe for Wirtz. It's definitely an option. It's definitely an option. I see more Coutinho in the way he plays than a Firmino, but I do feel like it could work, especially the way we set up, because I know on paper we say we're a 4-2-3-1 formation, but when we attack, we normally set up as a 4-2-4, and then you have Szoboszlai alongside the striker a bit more further up. So we might not have a out and out number 9, but you have two players in Wirtz and Szoboszlai attacking together at the front. So it could work, and that's why I did say I think it depends on the opposition in terms of how we set up. The great thing about Wirtz is, he can play as a number 10. That's his natural position, but he can be so effective as a left winger. When I say left winger, it's not the old school left winger where you're charging down the byline. He's going to invert a little bit more as well. So I think he'll definitely add a different dimension to our team, and he'll be unpredictable as well because he won't always be in one position every game. That way, if he was just our number 10, then the opposition will try and, muster up a plan to stop him from having any influence in the game. So that's something that I think Arne Slot likes in his players. He likes that versatility where players can play in different positions, and I feel like it suits how we play as well. Would they both say it's 125 mil, or they need to keep a partnership, maybe Elliot. If they wanted Kelleher to be part of the deal, the fee has to go down. It can't be 125 plus um Kelleher. That's just way too much. So for me, I'd probably say 18. No, if it's 125 million, I would say possibly 90 million plus Kelleher. Because I value Kelleher at 35 million pounds, and I think the Premier League does as well, because there has been strong interest from Aston Villa as well as Chelsea. So those two teams are teams challenging for Champions League slash Europa League. So depending where they, how their results end up tomorrow, definitely, especially Aston Villa, because their goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez is leaving, so they definitely need to find an adequate replacement. I think, you know, Pele could be the guy for them, and if they're willing to spend 35, 40 million, then I don't think he needs to be actively involved in this deal. But that's just a bit of a hearsay thing that I'm gathering right now. It hasn't been a strong stance that which I don't. It's not for me. It's that Bayern Leverkusen want a player as part of the deal. I think that's maybe them having like discussions that maybe they want to sign a player, but it's not happening to conclude this deal. It'll be two separate deals, if that makes sense. So because we already had initial talks regards to Frimpong, I think that's why we already liaised with the club in terms of signing Wirtz. And I also heard today that we've actually been in discussions with regards to signing Wirtz since January. So look, when Michael Ewings is, in position at Liverpool, he keeps things under the radar. And I'm not mad at that because, I've been frustrated for the last few months because I, probably in January time, I was thinking Richard Hughes is on holiday, but, he might have been doing the groundwork at that time. So, you never know. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this deal. I think it'll be straight cash. I think he'll be, if it's 110, 125, we'll get clarification soon. But I think it's going to be a normal deal involving the player. And if they do want to sign one of our players, I think we can negotiate a good price for them as a sweetener to get things done. So in terms of Elliot, Elliot would make a lot of sense in my eyes because I feel like he can naturally play that number 10 role, and I think his skill set would suit the Bundesliga. It's not as quick as the Premier League, it's not as physical as the Premier League. So if they wanted a number 10, I feel like that would be a great profile for them. Whether he wants to move to Germany is another thing, but maybe they have another player in mind, so that's why he's not really been spoken about. Well, they've all said the Frimpong deal was done. They said pay extra um for Kerkez, I'm thinking, as Frimpong was underpaid, hence talks way back. Um, he's the best striker player in world age 22. Bro Four says, big up yourself. What do you think about signing Isak? That would be the dream signing. If I'm being honest with you, that's the one I've been saying for a while. That's the one I want. I just don't think it's going to happen. I feel like with this work still, it was always going to be where I feel like the club had one marquee signing in mind, and they were willing to spend, over 100 million to acquire that player. But I feel like maybe they thought, let's go for the striker because I think that is the area that is quite obvious that we don't have that killer instinct in front of goal. You have Isak, who has been amazing for Newcastle, but he's going to be a very difficult player for us to attain. And then you have, I think, the second best choice. Some may say first, but I think it's neck and neck. But Julian Alvarez, fantastic player. I think he would fit us to the T. Like he just joined them last season. They paid around 85 million for him. I know it was a similar deal to Nunez, where it was 65 plus add-ons. But having said that, you just never know if a club would be interested to sell a player after 1 year. And it's not like he's had a bad year. He's actually had a fantastic year for his new team. And, you know, being a South American player, going over to Spain and enjoying that similar lifestyle to his home country, I don't know if he'll be in a quick rush to leave Spain anytime soon. So, you know, we talk about football, but we have to talk about lifestyle. We have to talk about real life situations as well, because the rumors that his missus wasn't happy about living in Manchester when he was at Man City. So that probably swayed him to move on and find a club like Atletico Madrid in Spain. But those two players for me are probably the top best strikers available in Europe. Of course, they'll cost an arm and a leg. And I don't think Liverpool were. I think Liverpool would have broken the bank for those two players or one of the two. But due to them not being available and the club aren't, showing any movement or that if they were nudged that they'll accept any offer. So with that said, you have to go on and find another solution or another option. You've got then you have then might as you have another criteria of striker. So you have the likes of Osimhen, who I believe is on the verge of possibly joining a club in Saudi. So that looks like he's destined to go there. Kerkez from Sporting, I have a question mark on him, but if he's the guy, I wouldn't be too displeased about it because I think he's rumored to be available for around 50, 60 million, which is not a crazy amount in this day and age, and he can score goals. Whether he can do it in the Premier League is a debate, and I feel like any striker you sign, it's always going to be a slight risk, isn't it? But the good thing on his part is that he's actually played at a decent level, which was the Championship in England, so he would be used to the physicality to that extent. So he should have, a good sort of transition into playing in the Premier League. So that would be someone that I would target. Then you have your strikers that are more project strikers, the likes of your Ekitikes and your Seskos. You know, depending on how you see certain players, for me they're both quite raw. They're not the finished article yet. So is it worth spending money on project strikers when you've got an accomplished player like Wirtz? I'm not so sure. I feel like if you've got Wirtz in the team, you want to kill up top as well because Wirtz will be creating all those chances. But if no one's cleaning those chances and not scoring the goals, it's not helping the team, isn't it? So I really hope Liverpool go and sign an inexperienced striker like Osimhen, Gyökeres, that sort of criteria. One player I'll add in the mix, and I know he's not going to be a favorite. I don't really rate him very highly, but I feel like it could be a decent stopgap option. Shout out to Jamie Phillips. I mentioned this on his show earlier today. Jonathan David. Now I know he's available on a free transfer. We could probably sign him for. like a two, not 2, 3, like on a sort of like a 3, 4 year contract. Have him as the striker for one season, and then next year we go big on an Alvarez or an Isak, depending on the situation, because there aren't a lot of top strikers available in this day and age, in my opinion. Um, some fans will say, maybe go for a striker in the Premier League like a Delap. Delap's not a bad player, but I don't vision him being the main guy in our team, as in the main striker or the main starter in our team. So that's something we have to address. But with Wirtz signing, well, on the verge signing, I don't want to jinx it, but we have to sign a striker. Whether it's going to be maybe break the bank for another striker, look, I would love it, but I'm just trying to manage expectations amongst the fan base because I don't want us to get too ahead of ourselves. Signing Wirtz is a big deal, by the way. We've had deals for Bellingham, Caicedo, sure many fall apart in the past, so we don't want it to happen again. So let's see. Isak would be my guy, but I don't think it'll happen, unfortunately. Reinhard or Die Trying says I would say that it becomes a 4-1-2-1, a 4-1-2-1-2. Yeah, it could definitely become that sort of like diamond shaped formation. Um, but the interesting will be who would be the two. Would it be Wirtz and Salah, or would it be Salah, another striker, and then Wirtz as your number 10? That would be the defining moment. So, oh, you've actually written it up top. So you've got Salah and Gakpo up top. Actually, because Gakpo, I know he's traditionally a left winger, but he can play a bit more inside and then be effective. Or we just sign another striker, someone that can fit that mold as well. But it wouldn't be a crazy shot. I think that would be a good shape for us actually. But then we have to sign a number 6, and I really hope we do address that position. It's a position that we've been, lacking in the team for a few years now. So we do need to try and add someone to play that role, especially when we've got two attack-minded fullbacks in Kerkez and Frimpong. You need to get a number 6. Whether we do remains to be seen, but I really, really hope we do. Adonis Trotos, big up yourself. He said, any idea when it will be confirmed? Just from what I've read in terms of what journalists have said, they want to try and wrap it up before the international break. And I believe that's around late next week. So I would say maybe in the next 48, 72 hours, we'll get some sort of official confirmation that a deal has been agreed. And it'll just be along those lines. I don't think they'll mention medical or anything like that. It'll just say Liverpool have agreed to deal with Bayer Leverkusen, and then that'll be the official news because the window doesn't open officially until 1st of June, which is next Sunday. So I think they'll just do it before that. That would be my guess. So hopefully, it does happen. But, it's going to be sooner rather than later, which is positive for our Liverpool fans. And then you've also come saying nothing will be confirmed officially until after tomorrow Monday. There is a new mini transfer window between 1st and 10th of June. That's correct. I think the goal is to get our main business done there. Yeah, I agree with that one. I think that is literally what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to get Frimpong, Kerkez, and works through the line, and then from there onwards, once we make some sales as well, then we can add. We don't even need too many players. I feel like I might sound selfish here, but I would like us to get another centre back. Would have been Hoyson, but unfortunately, he's going to Real Madrid. It looks like a defensive midfielder. And this is the part where I'm being a bit greedy. I want us to get another attacking midfielder, but not just any attacking midfielder. The player that I have in mind fits in different systems. So Turkey's the one that I want, and he's naturally a number 10, but does play on the right wing for Lyon and for our France under 21s. And big up to himself because he's just been selected for the French national team now. So that's his debut. Well, he could be making his debut. So it's the first time he's been in the full squad there. So we'll definitely be on Turkey watch in the next couple of weeks. But I feel like he would be a fantastic player to add because I can see him being like a long-term successor for Salah, and that's something I mentioned a few months ago when we signed new contracts for Van Dijk and Salah. We need to try and get their successors now, sooner rather than later, because when their contracts do conclude in the next 2 years, I don't want us to sign a player 2 years time to replace them. I want them to be in-house, i.e., they've gotten used to the way we play. They've learned from Van Dijk and Salah. They could be their mentors, and they've learned from the best. So when the time comes, they're natural fits. They don't need any settling time period or anything like that. So I really hope the club addresses that. Whether they do or not remains to be seen. But with Turkey available for £19 million, yeah, you're not going to get a player of that quality for that price. And I'll be honest with you, he's not that far off Wirtz. The only thing is, with Turkey, he can play in multiple positions, and I feel like that would really help us going forward. And look, if he was to join, and he really makes a huge impact in the team, we could have a midfield, an advanced midfield three of Wirtz on the left, Salah on the right, and then Turkey in the middle, the number 10 position, and then you've got a striker up top as well. So wishful thinking, but can't be ruled out. It is a possibility. Legend Zonesby, so it said Kelleher swap with Wirtz. It has to be money on top. But yeah, it could be a possibility because that is a player that they do like. Well, I say they do like, it's not been official, but Kelleher's had a lot of interest from teams in the Premier League, but there has been interest from other teams in Europe as well. So could be an option, but I don't know. It would depend in terms of how much they value Kelleher, because if they value him less than 30 million and that plays a part in the deal, then we would have to pay a bit more for Wirtz in the end. But I wouldn't be mad at it, but I would prefer to probably have it as separate deals, and maybe if we can get a higher bid from another Premier League team for Kelleher, it could help us in the long run. But at the same time, do we want to sell him to a rival, or do we want to uh, get the most financial gain? It's a debate into what you want. But for me, I feel like with the way FSU operate, the more money the better, because then we can use that to sign other players as well. But we'll see in the coming days. Reinhardt or Trying says, if Elliot is sold and we know Trent is gone, we possibly need two homegrown players in the squad. That's something we can definitely discuss in the coming shows, because Frimpong will be regarded as a homegrown player because he spent his youth years at Man City. So that's Trent's replacement already there in terms of that. Elliot could be sold as well. It will just depend, because it doesn't need to be a certain number. So what it is basically you have 17 non-homegrown players plus um homegrown players. So as long as you have 17 that are non-homegrown, then it kind of fits the criteria. But there's ways working around it, to be honest with you. Even if we got Bajtic back, he would be regarded as homegrown as well. So I have a feeling he would actually be part of the squad next season. So that's another player that could be homegrown. So there's ways of working around that, to be honest with you. Um Talking next is Frimpong is homegrown. Yeah, exactly. That's what I just said as well. LSU Novo Columbia. So he says, do you think we'll buy a striker? I think we will buy a striker. At this stage, I just don't know what the profile is. Because the dream would be an Isak or an Alvarez, and the realistic deal could be something like an Osimhen, a Kerkez. But I'm not too sure. It would depend on the deal, because even the likes of Ekitike and Sesko, they want big money for these players as well. So that's not something that I don't think the club will spend another 100 mil plus 125 mil on Wirtz. I would love it for it to be the case, but I don't know. I'm just going off past history, that I don't think that would be realistic. But having said that, I do expect the team a lot of players to be sold. Not a lot, but I do expect some players to be sold this season. That could generate enough funds to kind of balance the book. So let's see. But in terms of strike, I do think we will sign a striker. I just don't know what the profile is, because with certain players, I think Frimpong, we've known for a while he's the contender for right back. Kerkez seems to be the guy for left back, and then Wirtz kind of came out of the blue in a nice, pleasant way. Striker, we're all saying either Isak or Alvarez. I think that's been the debate amongst the fan base. It's sort of like a split decision. Um, either. I like both strikers, so I wouldn't be fussy if either of them come through. But if we were to sign Wirtz and a striker like an Isak or Alvarez, yeah, we're cooking next season. And let's be honest. I'll go far as to say that we'll be challenging for the quad. So bit far fetched, but I really think we'll be in a great position like that. Um, Shahid Shabi, so Shahid, it says, works great football to Liverpool, good player. He's coming on Liverpool. Yeah, he's a great player for us to very, very excited to see how he does for Liverpool. Do you think we'll buy a striker to Liverpool? Yes, I do. I think we'll buy a striker. I just don't know who it is. Look, it could even be where we sign like a Jonathan David on a free transfer, which I know a lot of the fans will not be happy about. But look, you'd have to ask yourself, would you rather sign an Isak and then not sign a player like Wirtz, or are you happy to sign Wirtz and then sign a striker either on a free transfer or around £50 million? I would rather just sign Wirtz and a striker, but maybe that's because it's happening, so I'm feeling a bit more so positive about it. But I know Wirtz for me, and we use this term a little bit too much nowadays, unfortunately. But I do feel like he's a generational talent, and for Liverpool to sign him at an age where he's playing at a very high level. He's only going to get better. I feel like there's levels for him as well. So hopefully he's able to produce his best years in a Liverpool shirt. And I'm excited about this. I really am. He gives me Coutinho vibes. That's the best comparison I can give. If you haven't seen much of him, he's hardworking as well. Works for the team. Good on both feet. Great dribbler. One on one, he's a master. And something that I've missed because I used to play football, and people that like that street football element, either nutmeg king, loves to do a nutmeg. So that's how great he is. Great first touch, great dribbling, always finds the right pass as well. He's not like someone that overplays it. You've got certain players when they're in their stride, they do too much, they get a bit too greedy and don't find the right pass in the end. It's pretty much just twisting themselves up in terms of running around the ball. So Wirtz isn't like that. He's very productive, very efficient on the ball. So yeah, he's going to be a game changer. I really do feel like he's that type of signing. So let's see. A lot for us Liverpool fans to be excited for, that's for sure. Kevin Evans says, big up yourself, Kevin. He says, can't be worse than Darwin. I'll be honest with you, Kevin. We can't do worse than Darwin. They're not even in the same conversation, honestly. So yeah, not in the same conversation at all. Delboy, because Delboy says, has he signed Wirtz? He hasn't signed, but according to reliable journalists, a fee has been agreed, and it's only a matter of time that it's announced. I think they're currently discussing the structure in terms of how the payments are going to be made, and it's finalizing legal issues in the contract here and there. So we could get an announcement in the next 48, 72 hours because they want to try and wrap it up very, very soon. So yeah, it should be a joyous occasion when that happens because I mean it will happen very soon. Uh, Kevin says apparently Isak is still a goal depending on this summer's knee op. Oh, he's got a knee operation. Bloody hell, I didn't know that. I knew he was injured, but I didn't know the extent of the injury. I just thought it was a knock. But if he's having a knee operation, I'm not gonna lie, that would put me off him slightly. I probably put my attention towards Alvarez. But let's see. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious, because I know with certain players they have to go through those sort of operations and stuff. But hopefully, it's not where it keeps him out for too long. But that would be a concern if he is going through a knee operation. Grim Republic also he says we do need a proper striker, and I'm surprised Liverpool haven't gone in for Matteo Retegui, who scored 26 Serie A goals this season and would cost about £50 million. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like there's certain players, unfortunately, that have been signed from Serie A and they just haven't worked out. Especially strikers. Strikers haven't really worked out for not just for Liverpool, but I would say a lot of teams in the league. You have to go as far back as mid-90s, like your Zolas, those type of players that were regarded as a success. So because of the way football's played in both countries, maybe the striker role, you know, it wouldn't be a smooth transition for them to be successful in this league. Because there has been certain players I thought, you know what, that player looks really good in Serie A. Maybe if they come into Premier League and it'll work out, and it hasn't worked. Moises Kean joined Everton, was terrible there, but he's gone back and he's really rejuvenated his career there. So maybe this doesn't suit, the way the game is played in this country. But for 50 million, a Serie A team, another team might want to sign him, or maybe a team in La Liga would be interested in that type of player. Because yeah, that's a lot of goals. So let's see what happens with him. But I can see him staying at his club, to be honest with you. Kevin Evans says Delap and Pedro Pen proven both options too. There's a lot of noise in regards to João Pedro. I think the fee that's been quoted is around 70 million, which for me is slightly high for the player. I do think he has potential. I don't know if he's ready-made to come into the team and be effective straight away. The lab, he would cost half of that. He would cost around 35. He's got a release clause, I believe. He's shown great promise this season. I just don't think that either of these strikers are the number 9 in our team. I feel like if we had an Isak or an Alvarez, for example, having them on the bench would be the perfect scenario. Because I don't want to be real, I don't want to say unfortunate, but I do think Jota will stay at the club. I really rate Jota, but I think the last 2, 3 years, his injuries have definitely hampered his progress in terms of playing successive games. But this season, he's really pouring from God. That's something that I thought, you know what, when he's fit, he's still able to contribute. He didn't really contribute that enough, in my opinion. So, that's a concern for me, in terms of having Jota even as a backup striker. Um, but I do hear that if there is interest from Saudi or any other league, Liverpool will be, willing to listen to offers, which is, I think, it may need to be done because, we want to go into next season having players that are available. And, with backup players, and I don't mean to be cheeky when I say this out loud, they should always be available. That's the whole point of them being backup, because if they're not starting, they should be well rested. They should be fit enough to be called upon when needed. So if your backup's always injured, that doesn't make sense. That's not the logical player to have in your squad. So, I feel like it could be the right time to part ways with Jota. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. Maybe it's too much, you know, outgoings happening, because you've got Nunez, who I think will definitely leave. I think that's pretty much a shoe-in. Diaz, a few weeks ago, I probably said 50-50. I feel like it's more 65-35 now. I just feel like there's so much noise coming from Barca, and there's noise coming from Saudi as well. I feel like there's definitely teams that would want to sign the player. And I don't think there's going to be any movement in regards to his contract. I don't think FSG want to give him improved terms. He's on 50-60K, which is quite low for a player of his caliber. Of course, when he joined from Porto, he was given 3 times the salary, which, makes great sense for him. But, you know, unfortunately, he picked up an injury 2, 3 years ago, which would have been the time where we would have given him a new contract. But due to that uncertainty, we never offered it to him. So there have been negotiations, but I don't think they're pleased with how things have gone on. So, I do feel like he will leave. Won't happen soon, but it will happen at some course of the summer. And I feel like we'll be able to get, I think we can get about 70 million for him. And I think it's the same for Darwin Nunez as well. I think we can get a good money for both players. If you combine the cost, you're getting about 140, 150 million. Most of that will go on Floren Wirtz. So it depends on the fee, because I've heard some people say it could be 90 million pounds, it could be 100, 110, 126. So it's very unclear in terms of, what the price range will be to sign Floren Wirtz. If it's around 100 million, then, if we were to make those sales, that's 50, 40, 50 million, in the bank that we can use. So I feel like we could get a good strike at that price. But, if we're able to push the envelope a little bit and get an Isak on Alvarez, then look, FSG, I'll be pleased, if after the summer you don't need to spend money in the next year or two because you've signed the players that we really wanted. So this is the summer I feel like we need to, go big and try and sign the right quality players, and it'll future-proof our team going forward. We won't need to spend too much over the years, in my opinion. So hopefully, hopefully we can make it happen. But in terms of Delap Pedro, good options, but I would see them more as understudy or backup players for the main striker. So the main striker has to be at Isak or Alvarez level, in my opinion. But that's just my thoughts there. Grim Reaper says my concern with Isak is his injury record. Um, Kevin just mentioned that he's having an operation on his knee, so that would be a concern for me as well. To be fair, Jonathan David will be a free agent and a good backup. Jota isn't up to scratch as is Nunez, so that's what I'm saying. Like having Jonathan David as a backup, or don't want to say out loud, but maybe even as a starter, until we are able to sign a top striker. We could, for example, in a I don't want to say worst case scenario because it's slightly disrespectful, but it could be a scenario where we sign Jonathan David as our main striker, for free, and then we sign a Delap as a backup. But if both, if Delap somehow, trains really well and blows everyone out the walls and really, has a huge impact in the squad, then I have no qualms with him overtaking Jonathan David, because then that way you've got a young striker who's up and coming, who's on the rise, who's banging in the goals, and then you've got a good, solid experience in Jonathan David, challenging. So you've got two players literally challenging for one spot. I wouldn't be crazy about that situation. I think that would work as well. So for me, I think the club just needs to explore the options out there. If they have money there to spend for an Isak and Alvarez, please go for it. That would be my advice, because then we're sorted for years. Because Isak is a young striker. I think he's mid-20s, isn't he? So he's not, he's not old by a stretch of the imagination. He's 25 years old. He'll be 26 in September. So, he'll be playing his prime years if he was to join Liverpool. So for me, that is very, very important that we can try and sign a player of that quality if possible. If not, I wouldn't mind Osimhen. I like Osimhen. I feel like he's been banging the goals for Galatasaray. He's been great for Napoli as well. He's got a knack of scoring tap-ins, which I don't mind. As long as you're banging the goals, that's my thing. He's got a great leap on him, so he's good at headers as well. He's effective. He's efficient in front of goals. So that's what you want in your striker. So for me, that's what I would like us to see. That's the type of level of striker I want. Um, Signing that kind of caliber plus a Delap would be the right balance for me. So I I re- I do think Jota, should leave the club. I feel like it's the right time for him to go and maybe pursue, another path, whether it's in Europe or even if he goes to Saudi Pro League. It's something where he could look into, because if he moves to Saudi, he's not playing at a very intense level. He's playing at a league that's got good players there, but it's not going to be, as rigorous as it is in the Premier League. So it might suit his body in terms of how he's set up now as well. So if Jota's to leave, then you definitely know we're signing two strikers. So I do think we'll sign a striker. I just, at the minute, very unclear on in terms of the profile is. My choice is Isak, and I'm sure your choice as well. But feel free to drop a comment. Let me know who you would like Liverpool to sign as their striker next season, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of names out there. Um, that will be different from all of us. Melvin, big up Melvin. He says, "Hi mate, do you think Kerkez is coming?" I think he is coming. I think, and not to sound cheeky, I think they know that deal is a straightforward deal, so they pretty much put their sole focus on getting the Floren Wirtz deal, because that's the one that's a bit more tricky. More money involved. They probably have to have further discussions. With Wirtz, also being sponsored by Adidas. Adidas being our new sponsor for next season as well. They're probably trying to have a deal where for commercial rights and image rights and all that sort of stuff, they have to be aligned together. So there'll be other details that they need to try and iron out before they can officially announce it to the world. So I think they've literally had discussions with Kerkez, and according to rumors, the personal terms have been agreed. The only thing with Kerkez, or should I say Bournemouth, is that they haven't agreed on the financial structure. I think the fee that they want is around £45 million. So we're willing to offer 40 plus 5 million add-on. So just more details that needs to be ironed out. But that one, not to sound arrogant or to sound cocky, is pretty much in the bag. Just like the Frimpong one is, that's done and dusted. He's had a medical, he's passed. He just needs to come over to the access center and take some pictures. That's all he needs to do. Kerkez, he's just waiting to book his flight, or uh, I say flight because he's probably going to be on holiday at some point. But he's just ready to come and make his way to the training center. So he's getting closer. That's how I would sort of put it into visual terms there. So Kerkez should be happening. But I did hear some sort of cheeky rumor. I think this was yesterday, where there was suggestions that Man City are going to go hard and try and sign Kerkez from Liverpool because they weren't able to get the Floren Wirtz deal as a sort of like a revenge tactic. I don't know. I think that's paper talk, to be honest with you. But I think Kerkez should be joining the club. I think done enough groundwork, try and get the deal done. And of course, with Richard Hughes uh, being the sporting director, and I brought him over to England, that should definitely play a part. And of course, Szoboszlai being his captain as well. I feel like there's too many, positives for us to think that he's not going to join. He should be joining Liverpool very, very soon. So it will be announced once the works is deal, and I think he'll be regarded as our third official signing in my eyes. So only time will tell, but I think it will happen very, very soon. Uh, Premier says Real Madrid want McAllister. They got Trent for free. Give us 500 million for McAllister, and maybe. Yeah, listen, I don't want to hear the name Real Madrid when it comes to signing our players as well. Yeah, give us 5 million, 500 million, then we'll talk. Maybe we'll consider it in that scenario there. Quentin Rosberg, so he says, I just hope we sign a centre back replacement this summer. Because if Van Dijk or Konate get injured, it's wraps. Luckily for us, in terms of Virgil van Dijk, he doesn't pick up too many injuries, which is definitely a plus point. And touch wood that he doesn't do that next season either. The Konate one, yes, because I'll be honest with you, this season, Konate has been a bit better. I think he's been managed a lot better within the coaching staff. Like he's not been used uh, too rigorously. Like he's been, rotated when needed, and he's been largely fit throughout the whole season. So I'm hoping that's because they've managed him better. They've not, they've decreased the intensity of his training, and maybe less gym work and all that sort of stuff. So maybe that's helped in terms of him being available for selection. But you can't rely on players to be fully fit throughout the whole season. You have to have players that are in the backup or on the wings that are ready to come in and have an impact on the team and on the lineup. So on paper, Van Dijk, Konate, and then the backups right now are Kwanzaa and Gomez. And unfortunately, those two players, they really have question marks in regards to their future, because Kwanzaa, I do feel like there's a player that I feel like he's very talented, but whenever he's been called upon this season, he's been prone to making errors. He's conceded penalties. He's made mistakes. He scored on goals and stuff like that. So you know, he's one of those players where if you don't watch the match, you feel like he's not too bad. As no, let me rephrase that. So if you watch him throughout the whole 90 minutes, you see that he's actually done a decent job. But if you watch highlights of the match and he's made two errors that have led to two goals, then that's what you see. And unfortunately, that's how I'm viewing him right now, because he's making errors, or his positioning hasn't been great in the defensive line, and that's costing Liverpool as well. So can you have a player like that in your squad who, at this stage, unfortunately isn't quite up to the Liverpool standard, or not to be rude, could be like a passenger in our team? I don't want that sort of player in our squad next season. So for me, I feel like it depends on what the club want. I feel like from his point of view, I feel like he needs to go out on loan and play first team football and develop at another team where he's given more first team minutes, and that would definitely help for him to return to the club. So there shouldn't be an obligation to sell, but he returns to the club next season and then should be a bit more, in tune and fully ready to play first team football. Or if Liverpool feel like, you know what, we see the potential, but I don't feel like he's going to hit further levels, and he's generating a lot of interest right now. So it might be worth us selling him now and try and catch him in this summer. And those funds can be used on signing another centre back or maybe used in other areas of the squad. So that's the decision I think we're going to go with. With regards to Joe Gomez, firstly, I don't know if we'd get a big transfer people were to sell him. I would like to keep him in the squad for at least another year because I feel like he's a player that gives us that versatility across the back line. I wouldn't even regard him as the fourth choice. I would have him as a fifth choice centre back and as backup for both fullback positions. So that way we're not relying on him. If he's available, fantastic, because he's very experienced. He can help out with the other young players in the team because we do have a young squad. Let's not underestimate that. So having an experienced head like Joe Gomez would be very key in terms of the squad morale. And when players are playing alongside him in a cup game, for example, you have an experienced figure in that defensive line. So for me, he would be the one that I would keep, but it could go either way. So let's see what happens. But I would like us to make sure that we try and sign another centre back. Holson would have been the guy because he looks like an unbelievable talent. I feel like he's got great levels to achieve. I feel like his ceiling's very high. Unfortunately, Real Madrid have come knocking, and with him just becoming a Spanish international, it was always going to make sense for him to go over there. So let's see who we target after that. But right now, I think that's not the priority for the club. I think it's Wirtz and then getting Kerkez, and then I think the striker will be the next one. And then I'm hoping we get another midfielder as well. But let's see. Let's see what happens. Kevin says, Perez in Liverpool, imagine Wirtz watching that, knowing he's coming to a club that big with that kind of player support. Yeah. That's going to be an indication that, look, we've just won one trophy. I know it's the big one, which is the Premier League, but now look at the support. There's estimate of 1 million people being there in the parade. I'm going to be there as well. So if you're there, feel free to reach out to me. But should be 1 million of us there, and we're going to have a big party because we weren't able to celebrate in 2020 due to COVID. So it's like having a double celebration. We're really going to enjoy this one. So look, even him just viewing games at Anfield and all that sort of stuff, like it should be enough. And I feel like he's already made that decision. I feel like it's like renowned that Liverpool have a great atmosphere at Anfield, and we're a very passionate and emotional fan base, and we fully back our players. I know it'd be another discussion to be discussed in terms of Trent being booed, but that's an isolated incident there because of that situation in terms of how he's conducting himself. But in generally speaking, um, it's more that whoever comes in, we fully support our players, and I feel like he's definitely going to get that as well. So yeah, he's in a positive position, and I feel like he's going to be welcomed with open arms, and he'll have a familiar face in Frimpong when he joins the club as well. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully that helps in terms of him settling at the club very soon. Liverpool Goals TV, because he says we are after Alvarez. I hope so. If he's the guy, then I will be so pleased because he ticks all the boxes. He's a phenomenal player. So if that was the case, I really hope that is the guy. Casual says big on says your voice sounds like you're in the middle of a yawn. I hope it's better now. If it isn't, please do let me know. I normally have it to one side, but I positioned it a bit more centrally. So if that's better, please do let me know. If not, then I'll have to invest in another mic. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. Um, Liverpool Goals 2 says Alvarez could have joined at the start of the season. I think we were interested in last year. But Man City weren't willing to sell to a rival, so that's probably why it didn't happen. I wonder why yawning is it's just uh Imitar said love you rugby yourself. Thank you for your comment. Liverpool Goals TV says City wanted too much money plus Diaz. Yes, that's correct. But other than we told them to piss off, and rightly so, because they were just they really tried to get Diaz involved in the deal, which is so cheeky because we're not going to sell Diaz as well. That makes no sense. We're not going to weaken our squad just to get one player. So no, I feel at the time it was the right decision to tell him to jog on. But in terms of this summer, I really hope we get Alvarez. I really do. Hopefully, he's because there's no sort of like loyalty to Man City. In that he was there for about 2, 3 years, wasn't he? And he wasn't really regarded as their sort of star striker or the main man there. So maybe, hopefully he still has that in him where he's like, "Do you know what? I want to prove a point there that I am the guy." Because if he was to join Liverpool, he would be the guy for us. So um, yeah, I hopefully, there's a bit of bad blood there. Not to sound, too crazy there, but hopefully that will help us in trying to get him on board to join Liverpool again. And his best mate is McAllister, so hopefully that will help as well. Grim Reaper says Trent is valued at 80 million. That would have paid for Kerkez 45 million and Frimpong 30 million. With 5 million spare, that's my only gripe with Trent leaving on a free, but he was a good player. Look, that is a fair point, but if I'm being honest with you, I feel like, as silly as it sounds, players don't care about that sort of stuff. They only care about themselves. They're selfish in that point of view. And when it comes to Trent, I think that is probably an accurate assessment there because he only cares about himself. Making that announcement just after the Chelsea game made no sense because now, he's not getting any love whatsoever. It's backfired. He looked emotional in the Brighton game. Maybe he's regretting his decision. I don't know, but it's sometimes about how you conduct yourself and the way he's leaving the club. He's done it in the worst case scenario. I don't feel like he's done it completely wrong. If he'd announced it after the parade and you know showed a bit more emotion in that video, I'm not saying I don't want to see tears or anything like that, but that one just felt so cold in terms of how he announced that he's leaving. He was definitely reading off a script, but maybe we don't need that. We don't need like a eulogy. We need like honest words. And it could have been a 1 minute video where he was like, "Look, I'm really sad to leave. This is my boy." Like we would have felt it a bit more. That just felt rehearsed. He was on auto cue there. So for me, the fans don't feel that connection. It doesn't feel like you're actually sad about leaving. You're probably just waiting to just go off to Madrid and do your thing there. So if that's the case, you can move on. And yeah, we've moved on. Clearly, we've got Frimpong, we've got Conor Bradley signing a long-term contract for another 4, 5 years. So that's wrapped up as well. So you know, we've moved on. So can you. Liverpool Goals TV says now Atletico want Nunez, so a deal is possible. That's something I mentioned a few weeks ago. Because they've shown a decent amount of interest in Nunez, could we do a swap deal? The big sort of defining factor in that deal would be what would the finance involve? I think I said because we value Nunes, we value him at about 50, 60 sort of million pounds because of interest from Saudi. Saudi were willing to pay 70 million for him in January. And we were willing to accept, I think he accepted it as well. But because we didn't have enough time to find an adequate replacement, we just pretty much said no to the move. So maybe that move gets resurrected in the summer. So let's say the valuation is 70 million. I would only, and then I'm sure they'd want at least 20 million on top of what they paid. Even though they paid 65, but I think the final deal would have been 85. So add another 20, that's 105 million. So, if we paid about 60 mil plus 40, 50 million pounds, would that be enough to prize them away? I feel like that's a bit of a cheeky offer, but I don't know. It would just depend on how much they value them because I think some European clubs value him at like 40, 50, which is too low. I'd rather just send him to Saudi, in my opinion. So let's see if it helps us get, um, if it helps us get Alvarez to have Nunez part of the deal. If it makes sense for Liverpool in terms of us getting a good money back or us, you know, not spending like 80 million plus Nunez. For me, I'm not happy with that. That's too much. I'd rather sell Nunez and get 70 million from Saudi, so it would depend on the deal. But if Alvarez is available, we need to go all in for that. We need to make sure we try and sign him. Brian says Mo and Flo running down the wings. I like the sound of that. That's a nice play on words there. I like that. Luca talks ball. How you okay? You're 200 people. Big up everyone for tuning in live. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you tuning. Hope you're enjoying the show. Uh, Liverpool Goals TV says Kerkez will only be announced after he has played his last match. Same with Frimpong. Exactly. Very, very good point there. I know we're being aggressive and trying to sign as many players as possible, but there still is a season to conclude, and that will be concluded tomorrow. And next week we'll hear official news. So yeah, I think the Kerkez is not 100% done, but 95% done. I think it's just a few things that needs to be ticked off, and then that would be announced. Frimpong, pretty much 100% done. So yeah, should be good in terms of where Liverpool are next week. Hopefully, we get a few announcements. That would definitely be a nice week for us. Uh, as Celeste Spence, Kenya Bigger says anything about a striker? No sort of concrete news regarding a striker. I think we've literally focused solely on getting this work still done, and then once this is concluded, then I think we'll move on and get a striker. I don't think Wirtz is the only attacker we're getting in terms of a false nine or a left winger. I think we'll get another player on top as well. So let's see what happens in the coming weeks. Greenwood says, I think Alvarez wanted to go back to Spain, and I can't see him wanting to come back to England. He is happy in Spain. That's my thing. That's something I mentioned earlier on. I think his missus voiced that as well, that she didn't want to live in Manchester anymore. So let's see, because not to sound biased, but if there was a club that he would return to in England, and I think it would be Liverpool, because we've got so many South American players there. If he was to join, it would be a different environment for him. It would be, it would feel at home where he can speak to McAllister, his Argentinian teammate, but they're actually best mates off the pitch as well. You got other players that are Spanish and Portuguese; they're very fluent in that. So it would be a good atmosphere for him to join. So yes, the weather, no one can do anything about that. That's just English weather for you. But in terms of a football environment, I think it'd be a great environment for him. So, if there was a possibility of him joining and we were able to have a discussion with the player, just like the way Arne Slot has sold it to work to join us and get on board with what we're going to do next year and for years to come, I think Alvarez could be swayed as well. So let's see what happens. Liverpool Goals TV, we are going to dominate England for years to come now. The team behind us are being left behind. They're worried. I'm sure you guys are seeing the reactions from some of the rival fans, especially content creators. They are trembling, to say it politely, that they are worried. Worse isn't the final signing as well. We are going to sign at least two or three players as well on top of that, in my opinion. So, we mean business this year, and it's a beautiful sight. Honestly, it really is, because this is something we've been wanting for a long time. Of course, I'm not saying we've been wanting, five work signing with 100 million each, but I feel like we are in a position where we should be signing a player like Wirtz, here and there. We've just won the Premier League. You can't tell me, when you're at the top, you shouldn't continue to strive to be at the top, because if we don't sign anyone, we're on a decline and other teams improve. But this year around, it's been a little bit different. We're leaving teams behind, and we haven't even, transfer window hasn't even opened yet. So we're showing a big club mentality in terms of how we're moving the transfer window. So that's a very positive thing to see. Um, Kevin Evans says, the problem is clubs can only complete two signings in this early transfer window, hence why Kerkez has to hold so we can complete what's first. That's fair enough. I didn't know that we only had two signings there. So that makes sense, because then it'll be Frimpong and Wirtz, and I think the Kerkez one we can get done after that short period. So that's interesting. Liverpool Goals TV says our transfer result is based on the squad rules. We can't sign infinite amounts of players. That is true as well. Um, Green Reaper says Amram had a team meeting and told Garnacho to leave and find another club. United in crisis. Yeah, I saw it earlier on today. That's wild for him to just be like, yeah, you're not part of my plan. You need to walk out now, because I'm not saying he's one of their best players. He's not, but he's a young player, so that's a player that you still want to have as part of your squad. And they've got a lot of work to do. I was speaking to one of my friends who's a big United fan, and I said to him, you guys need to sign like 10 players. He's like, that's an exaggeration. I'm like, look, going through your squad is not really exaggeration. You guys need serious surgery in that squad. So, you know, they got a lot of work to do. And we're back on our perch now. So, you know, we've achieved number 20, and hopefully it'll be 21 next season as well. John123, big up yourself. John says you would never work to learn. I love that. Big up yourself for that comment. Um, Liverpool Goals TV says 17 non-homegrown and 8 homegrown FIFA career mode sayings do not apply. They certainly don't. Um, John said if we get worse, then a Jonathan David or João Pedro would suffice for striker. Jonathan David would make the best financial sense because he's on a free transfer and he's not the type of striker that's going to score worldy goals or anything like that. He's a fox in a box. Happens is going to be his creme de la creme, and I don't mind it because when you've got a great player like Wirtz in your team, he's going to be around the pockets. He's going to create openings for a player in that 6 yard box. So maybe we do just need a player like Jonathan David who just finishes the move in the end. So João Pedro has good potential. He has different profile to Jonathan David. He's a player that I think is naturally a number 10, but has a good sort of attacking ability in terms of scoring in one-on-one situations. So he'll probably be deployed as a false nine type striker. But if Wirtz is playing number 10, I want us to get a striker that's a bit more further up, in my opinion. So let's see. Let's see what we do. So I said we've got Gomez, yeah, we do. I think he'll still be a squad player for us next season. Um, Liverpool Goals TV says clubs cannot sign as many players as they want due to squad rules. Yeah, I think that's why we're signing, 2 or 3 right now, and then there will be a few departures as well because, well, Trent is regarded as a departure because obviously he's leaving on a free contract, and I think there's a few as well that are lined up. They're not, I think the likes of Tyler Morton could leave, but the thing he's injured right now, so I don't know if he'd be, it'll be easy for him to move on right now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens for us. Uh, Liverpool goals to our transfer not based on FIFA career master. Any club need to adhere squad role, which is fair. Green Reaper says, I think Mo Salah will get vice captain now, seen as training. I think that would be the right decision for him to be vice captain. He's very experienced and he might not be a very vocal person on the pitch, but he leads by example. He's a winner. I think they all treat him as a leader in the squad. He leads by example on and off the pitch. He's a great example to all the young players. So yeah, I definitely agree that he should be vice captain for us next season. Graham said, when is the parade? The parade is on Monday, so couple more days. Liverpool Go TV said, I have just done a video about the transfer of Indian squad rules. Check it out. I'm gonna make a note of your name here. So yeah, once I close my show, I will definitely subscribe to your channel, and I'll also uh, watch that video as well. So thank you for your comments here. Thank you for tuning in. Um, Graham says it's on a work day. Tomorrow is a bank holiday Monday, so that's why they're doing it tomorrow. And he says, good to see so many people in. This channel has the best watch alongs of any fan channel. Well, thank you for your kind words there, Graham. Appreciate your support there. And big up yourself for tuning in. John 123 says, Alvarez said the other day, first final at home, hinting he's not going anywhere. Yeah, that's a shame. That is a shame. Liverpool Goals TV says, Wirtz is continuing on another level. We have signed one of the best young players in world football. Facts. 100% facts there. Liverpool Goals TV says, reports out of Spain has claimed that Alvarez can leave. Sheesh. I have to do a quick Google for that. If that is true, oh my gosh, that would be unbelievable. Okay, now I'm seeing Arsenal trying to sign him, and then Arsenal just want to beg it for no reason. Now you're right, it does say can leave. Wow. Alvarez could be the guy for us, guys. He could be the next. Oh, if he's the next one in line, just hand us the Premier League title now, honestly. Um, Graham Rogers says, I think Trent deserves every boo he gets. It's not for anyone, including Klopp, to tell the fans how we should feel. He's been revealed for what he is. Everything he did was for himself, all about him. I will be touching on Jurgen Klopp's comments. I have a show scheduled for 10 p.m. today. I'll be doing a preview of Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. So I'll speak about Klopp's comments regarding Trent, as well as Arne Slot's comments in the press conference as well. So make sure you're tuning in for that later this evening. But I'll quickly touch on what you just said. I totally agree. No one can tell how Liverpool fans should feel. You shouldn't, in fact, not as Liverpool fans, you can't tell how football fans should feel. Football is an emotional sport for us, and as fans, we're very passionate about the game. You can't tell us how we feel. Like that does not work in any shape or form whatsoever. And since he's left, Trent has not been the same Trent under Jurgen Klopp as he has been for Arne Slot. He's shown parts of his games where he's lackluster, and people are, oh, but that's his game. But his body language has been off. Like looking back now, you can confirm that. You know what? Maybe he wasn't completely on it. Maybe he just wasn't fully focused at times, and his head was in Madrid more than anything else. So he's not conducting himself in any good light whatsoever. So Jurgen Klopp is always going to back him because he's a player that brought him up through the ranks and he's done really well under his regime. But Jurgen Klopp is no longer a Liverpool manager, and the Liverpool manager has voiced some comments to suggest that he wasn't fully focused this season. So I'm going to go by what the current coach says. I love Jurgen Klopp, don't get me wrong, but he's not the coach. He's not seeing Trent on a day-to-day basis this season. He hasn't, so he can't really voice too much about him. You can say as a person, he's good, like he's loyal. We should show him the support. We would do that. We really would. But to announce that you're leaving, you know, a month before the season concludes, um, you said that you don't want to talk about anything regarding a transfer or anything like that, but then you drop a bombshell like that. His sort of attitude on the pitch, there's been moments where he's looked angry at the coach. He's done celebrations like that to the fans. Like he's done so many little things to really annoy the fan base, and very very loyal to our players, and especially with Trent being a Scouser, like the fans have held him to a high regard. He's one of their own, and they've always treated him as you know like one of their prodigies because he's been the symbol for Liverpool Football Club for the last 7 8 years. And he's always said things out loud that, you know what, this is my club. I would never leave this club. If Real Madrid want to buy me, they can buy me on FIFA. So where's that energy gone all of a sudden? So look, Jurgen Klopp, he has the right to express himself, but I don't agree with his comments, if I'm being brutally honest. So that's that on Jurgen Klopp. Grim Reaper says Jurgen Klopp defending Trent and going to auction, sorry, Trent's jersey signed by Trent Klopp. As much as I respect Klopp, what did Trent did was just unhanded. Yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with that, to be honest with you. Um, David Barabito says, is it actually done? Not official in terms of Liverpool Football Club saying it's done, but according to very reliable journalists, that it's been agreed. Um, the fee hasn't been completely announced. They've said like a deal has been agreed. They're just finalizing the structure. So we'll get some more clarity in terms of how much it's going to cost to get Wirtz over to Liverpool. Some rumblings with regards to maybe a player involved in the deal. I don't think there is. I think they might do business late in the window, but I don't think there will be a player directly involved in this deal. So not 100% official. Like he's not going to be holding a shirt or anything like that, but we are going to get some sort of confirmation. I would say probably in the next 48, 72 hours that it's agreed. Like everything is certified. So yeah, fingers crossed. We'll wait until that announcement happens. Timothy Murray, big up yourself. He says it's pronounced Wirtz. Mate, all right. Sorry, apologies. Wirtz is the pronunciation. Grim Reaper, Frimpong scored more goals in less games than Trent in their respective leagues. Yeah, I think with Frimpong as well, I think he can get a good tally for us in terms of goals in a season. I think he's going to get more goals than Trent for sure. But I think in a sense he's not going to ping those Hollywood passes like Trent does, but he's going to definitely add the tally in terms of assists. I think he's going to get some good numbers. That would be my prediction because he's going to be so high up that pitch. I feel like him cutting back passes. Salah playing a bit more inside as well. It's definitely going to add a great balance to that side. So yeah, looking forward to Frimpong in a Liverpool shirt. Daily Stats, he says Trent deserves the boo. He set up a wrong example at LFC by running down his contract to join Real, paving other scousers to do the same way. Yeah, he's not been a good example, to be fair. And I don't feel like this is a decision that he's just made in the last 2 3 months. I think this has been in the groundwork for at least a year or two. I can safely say at least a year since Jurgen Klopp announced that he's leaving. I think since then he's always wanted to leave the club. That's just my prediction there. Uh, Tafsir Bigo, so he says, I don't get why fans are having a go at Klopp. We now a dad will always support his son. Yeah, I get your sentiment there. Um, that's why I'm not having a sort of aggressive point of view towards Klopp. I just don't agree with it because I feel like fans are entitled to express how they feel, and I feel like he hasn't conducted himself. But I understand Klopp's sort of comments about Trent. I just don't feel like it's the. I just don't agree with it, if I'm being honest with you. But I don't have any hate towards his opinion there. Grim Reaper says, looking forward to seeing how this new goalkeeper we signed from Valencia copes with the pace of the Premier League. It's going to be interesting. Of course, the pace will be more so in terms of like corner kicks and getting used to players, try and push them around in terms of like set pieces, all that sort of stuff. He's a great shot stopper. Questions will be raised in regards to his distribution because from what I've seen, decent kick on the ball, but he's not on the level of Allison. But he's a great shot stopper. He's got great reflexes. Had a bit of a mixed season with Valencia. Started off quite poorly, to be fair, but during the mid-season, last few months, he's really improved. So he'll be a good number two for us, I think, and definitely have a great mentor in Allison to learn the ropes, and of course, in the future, could become our number one keeper whenever Allison decides to move on. Tafsir says Liverpool is a gift that keeps giving. I love it. And FSG has surprised me if these signings are concluded because usually they hate to spend. That's what I'm saying. I feel like someone's hacked into John Henry's account or something because this is very unusual in terms of what we're doing. But hey, I'm loving it as well. Green Reaper says, I bet if we got Jude Bellingham, Trent wouldn't be leaving. Klopp wanted Bellingham, but Bellingham was greedy for wages. Yeah, it's a good point, to be fair. Um, and Felice says, "Come on, you Reds, big up yourself there. Thank you for your comment." Uh, Liverpool goals. TV says Frimpong will show more balls than Trent has ever done. Plus, we have signing his teammate, which we linked up with. Yeah, exactly. Signing Frimpong is great, but then he has his national teammate, so it's a win-win scenario in all situations. Um, Grim Reaper says, I personally think new players shouldn't be demanding huge wages until they prove themselves at a new club, with unfair on the players who are established at the club. It will depend in terms of who the player is, because if they're earning a certain amount of money at another club, we have to match them to that extent. But in general speaking, the way Liverpool do business is that they'll give them a good salary, so it'll be better than what they're currently earning, but not a crazy amount. Like, for example, when United signed Sancho, they gave him 400k straight away. Like, that's wild. Liverpool would do it where if you were to sign a player like Sancho, if he's earning 100k at Dortmund, we'd give him 150k, but then we'll give him incentives to, receive more money if he's met certain targets. And then we'll have a stipulation where in, year two, we can discuss another contract extension. So we'll do it in that kind of process. And I think that's the right way to do it, especially when it comes to young players, because with these sort of young players, um, you can't give it to them all at once because they start losing a bit of motivation. Uh, they will also, lose the love for the game a little bit, which sounds crazy out loud. So it's something that Liverpool have done really well over the years. So I do feel like it's something that they should continue to do going forward. Just give me 1 second, guys. Um, is that Anfield? I'm gonna say Anfield. Big up. So he said we're looking strong even without Trent. Man, we replaced him before he left. Conor Bradley and Frimpong new deal. I love it. Prove no player is bigger than the club. Worse than the deal that we normally do, but I love it. Look, you've summarized that very, very well. I love the fact that we've got Frimpong overdone. It would have been a harder because he had a release clause, but to do it just before he's officially left the club, I'm loving it because it just shows that what, it's fine if you want to go, go. Your replacement's already here, and we wasted no time to find a replacement. So I love it as well. I really do. I also like the fact that I look back at it now when Trent made that appearance the other day and he got booed. He hasn't played since then. So for me, I felt like that was purposely done by Arne Slot. So if that was the case, then yeah, that's a bit shrewd from the coach. But I'm not mad at that, to be fair. Green Reaper says Wirtz is getting somewhere in the region of 60 million. Yeah, I think that equates to, I read earlier on today, 180K per week, which is good, which is fine. Graham said, "What will happen with Kaiser?" Big question there, Graham. I personally think he will leave. Unfortunately, I really like the player, and I'm sure you've heard me before, mentioning before in previous shows. But I just feel like the writings on the wall for him. Napoli have just been crowned Serie A champions, and they're one of the teams that are strongly linked with the player as well. I think they want to have a loan with an option to buy, but I think we've said that we would like an obligation to buy. So there has to be a transfer fee agreed at the end. But it's a shame because I really rate the player. Enjoy watching him over the years. I feel like the injuries have had a toll on his body, and he's not the same impactful player that he was a few years ago in terms of his dribbling. He still has that ability, but he doesn't have that burst of speed that he used to have. So it's a bit of a shame. But I do think we will part ways. I don't think he'll be sold. In terms of the fee that has to be made into after that loan deal. I don't think it'll be a crazy. Will probably be about 15 million or 20 million. So maybe returning back to Serie A would be the right move for him. But at least he gets a winner's medal, and that was a talking point amongst us fans, and he gets that now. So yeah, he leaves, in a positive light. He joined the club with such admiration of the club and spoke so highly about the city as well. He was a very positive sign. I feel like when I saw that vlog, I was like, you know what, this is a guy that actually really wants to join the club. So whatever he does, I know he's gonna give his all. Unfortunately, injuries haven't helped with him. He got ill for a bit as well. I think he had COVID or something that he was out for some time. And yeah, just couldn't really manage to play a number of games. I don't know if Arne Slot favored him at some point of the season as well. So we'll see. But unfortunately, I do think we might part ways with him. If you were to ask me who the replacement would be, I only have one name. That's Cherky. That's the guy I want. So let's see. And that was actually the player that they were debating about last year in terms of who should have signed Cherky or Chiesa. So 12 months later, maybe we can just make that deal happen and sell Chiesa and get Cherky on board. So let's see. Uh, Anvil says, I don't know why what John Henry's smoking, but give me some. Listen, I'm all for it in terms of what he's smoking. And may he continue because we need some more signs like the way we're doing it right now. Grim Reaper said, I think he's staying for now as cover for Mo. I wouldn't be mad at if he does stay. I just have an inkling that he goes back to Serie A. Liverpool Ghost TV says Trent will have to play right wing back now. Good luck to him. Yeah, good luck to him. He's not a problem anymore. I saw a comment earlier on today about Thomas Tuchel saying that Trent has let the England team down, or he will, if he doesn't improve his defensive duty. In my head, I thought, you know what, that's his problem now. I'm not even going to defend the guy. He's not a Liverpool player anymore, so that's a Trent problem now. And those the Madrid fans, listen, if you give them like a 5 out of 10 performance, you're gonna see the white flags being waved. That's literally how cutthroat they are over there. So yeah, good luck to him. Hope he enjoys it. Anfield says that Graham he might leave and he might stay. We don't know. Yeah, we're not so sure right now. Anfield says it's his funeral. Yes, it is. It definitely is his funeral. Andre Murphy, big up yourself, Andre. He says I think what hurts is that he kind of led us to believe he was negotiating with the club. That is what he has brought on out of this reaction. You know what? It's facts, because he was like, I'm gonna keep quiet, and then he showed like things that we thought, you know what, maybe he'll stay. Even the goal that he scored against Leicester City, I thought, you know what, he might be swayed, he might stay with us. And how wrong was I? But he's given us those glimpses, and I feel like it's just childish or it's a bit manipulative in terms of what he's done because you shouldn't play with fans in that way. Like, if you don't want to talk, please keep it stum. Don't give us these indirects and subliminal messages here and there. We don't need it. So it's not the Trent show. We don't really care. Like, if you're gonna stay, stay. If you're not going to stay, it is what it is. Like, I think most of us half expected him to leave the club anyway, but it's just the manner in terms of what he's done and how he's conducting himself. It's not acceptable. So I agree with your point there. Liverpool Goals TV says anyone who has seen Frimpong play, he's a madman. Opposition defenders are going to shit themselves. Do you know what? That's something I've said as well because everyone's like, "Oh, he can't defend." But the thing is, he's haven't had to play right back in the last 2, 3 years. He played right back at Celtic, but then even there he got converted as a winger. So, he's never been asked to play as an orthodox right back. And guess what? At Liverpool, he's not going to play as an orthodox right back. He's going to play as a wing back more or less. And he's gonna have that license to go down that right hand side. And that right hand side is Frimpong zone. That's what it's gonna be. It's not going to be Salah going that side, or of course, in transitions, players might, interchange a little bit, but that's going to be his side because Salah's not gonna occupy that byline. That's not his game anymore, and it shouldn't be. He should be focused on playing a bit more centrally and trying to score goals from there onwards. So for me, that's going to be the key in terms of how Salah plays for Liverpool next year. He's going to be in that hot zone that Slot likes to refer to, and I'm expecting him to unleash more goals, which is crazy because he's been breaking records left, right, and center. But I feel like there's so much more for Salah, and if we set up the team the way I'm envisioning it right now, we'll be cooking. So it's going to be very, very interesting in terms of what we do. Um, Tap says it works, looks so cool in the new for Liverpool top. It's not even a real top. The real it's been AI generated, but yeah, I think it looks good as well. And plus with him being Addis as well, he's gonna be the poster boy for Liverpool and Addis now. So it's a great thing. Nelson Bronson says, "Who cares?" I see you're a Tottenham fan there. Yeah, you enjoy the celebrations, my friend. Um, you'll care next year, don't worry. Grim Reaper said Bellingham was wanting 400k a week and Mo was only on 350k a week, and that would have been disingenuous to Mo Salah because Salah is on another level to Bellingham, and that's what. Yeah, I think that's definitely because if you've given Salah that kind of highest pay bracket, if Bellingham was asking for 400k, that's wild. So it's probably the right thing because that doesn't give out a good message. He's only at that time it would have been 18, 19 if you joined Liverpool. So that no, that that's not the right thing. And to be fair, even if Bellingham joined that year, we had a lot of work to do. You guys will probably remember our midfield was on a decline. Fabinho lost his leg. Henderson wasn't the same dynamic player in terms of using his energy across the pitch. He was in decline as well. So we really had to, sign a lot of midfielders and pretty much bringing in a whole new midfield department. That's literally what it was. So our requirements was bigger than signing a Bellingham. We needed a new midfield altogether. So in hindsight, look, I know Bellingham's a great player. I'm not gonna, put his name down or anything, but we needed to really fix our midfield. And that's put us in a position in terms of why we won the league because those midfielders have played a part. Let's not forget that. Apple says Frimpong 100%, Wirtz 99%, Kerkez 95, Isak 30%. If Isak's the one, let's see, because of course we mentioned earlier on that Alvarez could leave as well, so maybe Alvarez is in that mix. I don't know. To be honest with you, if it's Isak or Alvarez, I'm not gonna have any issues whatsoever. Because I remember a few years ago it was Nunez or and Cuckoo at the time. And I think some said Cuckoo, some said Nunez. I can't remember what I think I wanted Cuckoo, but I knew Nunez would have a decent, he showed a decent account of that year. So, rest his injuries in terms of what's happened there because Nunes hasn't really delivered and Cook has been injury prone since then. So either way, it wouldn't have worked out for us in that shape or form. But these two strikers, Isak might be slight concern to his injuries. Alvarez, these two are shoo-ins because they're from the league in terms of Alvarez played for Man City and he'll hit the ground running as well. So look, I'm all for it when either of the strikers. If they're not attainable, then we've got to do some groundwork in terms of who else can come in. There are a few options out there, but not at that level, in my opinion. David Shakespeare, big up yourself, David says we need a striker. Who do you think we'll get? I'd love it to be Isak or Alvarez, but I would have said Osimhen, but the rumor right now is that he's off to Saudi. So, money talks in this day and age. If those three aren't available, I'd go for Gyökeres. He's not really my first choice, even in terms of that order, because there is still question marks about, but I think he'd be available 50, 60, and is a bit more accomplished in comparison to your AKTKs and your Seskos. So I'd rather have a player like that, and I think he's much better than Nunez. So he's definitely an upgrade in terms of what we have. So that would be the player that I would go more realistically. But if you're talking dream scenarios, it's Alvarez or Isak, in my opinion. So let's see what happens. And for the math teacher, what comes after 19? Me, LST, holy trophies. I love that. We got yourself. Um, Possibly Alvarez. I'm hoping Liverpool goes TV. I'm hoping. Apple says personal terms tick. Deal and deal agreed. Yeah, I've heard the deal. I think I've heard the deal has been agreed as well. It's just the payment structure. The fee has been agreed from what I've heard. It's just how are the payment structure, like how much we're going to pay in year one, year two. That's what they're trying to finalize. And there's other legal rights. And I think, with Adidas being involved as well, there might be something along those lines that needs to be ironed out. And plus, I don't think we'll make it announced officially until everything is done. So let's see. I think it'll come sooner than we think. So hopefully it'll come in the next 2 or 3 days. Liverpool goes to says our owners have made a mega loan to the club. We are not messing about. Look, I'm all for it. I really am. Green Reaper says Wirtz will be the first German since we had Emre Can at the club. Yeah, and we got him from Bayer Leverkusen as well. So the connection is there. Um, Liverpool goes to says Frimpong likely to play right wing and Salah to change position. Okay, that's interesting. Because you've said that Frimpong plays right wing. He does play right wing for Netherlands. He's not a right back. Alonso never asked him to defend. That's what I feel like. On paper, he's going to be placed at right back, but the way he plays in the game, he's going to be further up the pitch, past that halfway line, and then you're going to have the likes of Szoboszlai or a DM who I think should possibly join as well, come in and cover that area. Or if it's Gravenberch, because Gravenberch can do that job as well. And I feel like that's going to give us that balance on Frimpong's side because I don't think he's going to be a right winger as such, but I think because he's going to occupy that right flank heavily, it's going to allow Salah to invert inside a bit more. So from a defensive point of view, he will drop back and form a back four. That's how he's going to play, in my opinion. But we will soon find out in preseason to how the team sets up. And I'm actually looking forward to preseason games now. Dave Shakespeare says we need a striker. Who do you think we'll get? Just mentioned that to you in terms of Isak or Alvarez. David, and then Liverpool says Alvarez. Yep, that's your choice as well. Ruben says Mo Salah winning Player of the Year and Grandma winning Young Player of the Year. Beautiful, isn't it? Great achievement for the boys today. He says, I bet Leverkusen sorry, I bet Bayern Munich boardroom is kicking and screaming and stuff because we got Gravenberch and Wirtz. They certainly are because they dropped the ball on Gravenberch, and I feel like that was very harshly done in terms of treating the player in that way because he was a baller for Ajax, and I feel like he just needs his time to settle into the league. And when you don't play the player, how's he going to find that rhythm? So for me, they dropped the ball in it, but it's been our game. So I'm so pleased we got Bamberg because at one point it was him and Bellingham that were known to be the next big stars, and we've got Bamberg, in my opinion. So we've got one of the big stars in world football right now. Liverpool Goals TV says, "Imagine Alvarez and Wirtz in the same team." Yeah, that emoji says it all. Mind blowing, honestly. Uh, David Shakespeare, what do you think of him, Victor Jokeris? I'd take him if we're not able to attain Isak, Alvarez, or Osimhen. He'd be my fourth in line. But I do like him. I just have slight question marks in terms of can he hack it in the Premier League? That would be my only reservation. But he'd be a gamble worth taking because I feel like he played English football. I know he's only played at championship level, but he's played English football, so he shouldn't be too, you know, dissimilar to the level. Of course, Premiership level and Championship level is completely different. But English football in terms of the weather and how it's played, like Championship is actually probably more physical anyway. So he should be able to adapt to that environment. So he would be the one that I'd go for realistically, ahead of the likes of Delap, Pedro, Ekitike, and Sesko. For me, he'd be ahead of those strikers in line. Green Reaper says, I wonder would Napoli swap Osimhen for Nunez? It's something I mentioned a few weeks ago on one of my transfer talk shows. It could be an option. It could be an option, but I don't know if Napoli president. I don't think he's got the best relations with Osimhen, so I think he's probably just want to try and get as much cash in as possible, which is probably why he's being linked to a move to Saudi and just try and get rid of him because they're not on good terms. So that might be something that helps make that sell very quickly. Um, as Zani edits 8 big so he says, where do you think Frimpong will play position wise? On paper, it's right back, but I see him being more as a wing back, a bit more further up, and then having a DM, cover his space in attacking position. So on paper, I think he'll be a right back, which will surprise a lot of you, I guess. Um, Lucky, Otto Breeze, because he's so lucky. He says, "What centre back do you think we should sign?" Great question, because I would say Hoyson as the guy. Hoyson would have been the one that I think Liverpool should have targeted, but of course he looks like he's made his decision and he's going to go to Real Madrid. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I know we've been linked with Gay. That doesn't move me, if I'm being honest with you. The dream signing, which is not going to happen, is Bastoni. That's the one I would love for us to get, but I don't think he'll sign for us. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think he'll leave Italy, in fact. I think he'll stay in Italy for the rest of his career. I think we will end up signing Hato from Ajax. I know predominantly played as a left back in the last couple of seasons, but he is traditionally a centre back. And I feel like what we can do with him is this season we sign him and register him on paper as a centre back. So he'll be an understudy for Van Dijk. But then next season, Robertson he's on his last year, I believe. So his contract will probably expire. And I don't think we'll give him an extension. And then next season you'll have Hato and Kerkez as your left backs. And then we sign a top centre back next summer. That's what I'm envisioning right now. So Hato as a stopgap, but a player that can play in two positions. So those, could be the options there. However, I do have another player in mind. If we were to sell Konate, I feel like if we sell Konate, we need to find a player that is, similar in terms of how he plays, similar in terms of his strengths in the game, which is, his physicality and his aerial dominance. A player that would tick the boxes in replacing Konate for me would be Diomande from Sporting. I feel like he's quite similar, like for like to how Konate plays. So that'd be another addition to the squad. So that could be a player that I could earmark, but I think Hato would give us a different dimension or being a left-footed centre back there. So that would be the player. But I don't know. Gay is available for a cut price of like 40 million. I think Schlotterbeck was available for 40 million before he picked that injury. So maybe that type of defender would fit the bill. But the dream sign for me would be Bastoni. But I like Hato. I really like Hato. So I'm going to go for Hato to be the centre back signing for us this summer. Tommy, big up yourself. Tommy says Alvarez will cost another 120 million. No chance. Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Um, I'd love it for it to happen. I really would, but I don't know. Look, I'm gonna sit here with hope. Um, you never know, because the worst one I think blew us away. So if we get Alvarez on board as well, you're gonna see me fly off this chair and yeah, I'll be on the floor because that would literally, sweep me away in that way. So crazy. Let's see what happens. Just mentioned that comment there. Going to repay payback to Bayern Munich, sending us injury from Thiago. Listen, Thiago is one of my favorite players of all time, so I'm not going to speak too ill of Thiago. Um, but yeah, big up yourself. And he says, dude, you're talking through your nose, open your mouth. I think it might be my mic, so unfortunately, I might have to get a new mic. But yeah, appreciate your comment there, I guess. Um, Liverpool Goal TV says, Wirtz can also play out wide, can use both feet. Striker is coming, people. Don't be surprised to see Salah at number 10. I mentioned Salah playing number 10 last year before Arne Slot joined, so I can definitely see that happen because he plays there for his national team. So it is something that is in his locker. Tommy says Slot himself said he wouldn't move most of the. Oh, has he? I've never heard him say that. That's fair. Salah goes to says Salah does not have the pace anymore to play down the right, but that's why having Frimpong sort of helps him in that situation because then he's so focused to be more of an inside forward rather than out and out winger. So that's why I think we've deployed a more attacking fullback. And that's why if you look at the rumors in the last few months, we've never been linked with a defensive right back. The young kid from final, Givario Reed, he's an attacking fullback. Vanderson, who we were recently linked with, he's another attacking fullback. So all the names that you've probably seen in the rumor mills, they will be an attacking fullback. So that's always been our profile. So there's a reason why we've gone for that type of player to help Salah in that situation. Adnan Khan, so Adnan says we still need a striker. We always fall short of goals. Yeah, we've literally won the league without a real striker. Let's be honest, guys. So I definitely agree. We do need to sign a striker. Liverpool Goals TV says Salah will be used in a position where he does not need to run. So even in the number 10 role, he needs to run because right now you got supposed to like being the pressing merchant there, isn't it? But of course, Salah doesn't play the game in that way. So you have to find solutions. That's why I don't mind him still being on the right hand side with Frimpong attacking that channel, and then you've got Salah, a bit more inside as well. So I think it will work. I think it'll add a good balance to the team. Tommy says this season Slot took away a lot of his defensive responsibility. Correct, that is true. He can invert slightly, but he'll start on the right. I totally agree with you, Tommy. That's what I'm visioning as well. Philip, big up Philip. He says, big up Aussie. That's looking like two first choice targets we've got. It really is. Add Kerkez, that's free. So yeah, Liverpool doing their business very, very early, and I'm loving it. To be fair, uh, Danny Edits 8 says Alvarez is staying at Atletico. The club president said. Is that what he said now? So I'm hearing mixed reports. Because I just did a little quick search as I was talking. Some say he could leave. President might have other ideas. I don't know. We'll soon find out, I guess, what the position is with regards to Julian Alvarez. But yeah, we'll see. We'll find out in due course. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to so much getting involved. I'll give a few shouts. Shout out to Wilded Wolf, Abdul, Neil, Broforce, Rain Hard and or Die Trying, Adonis, Legend Zone, Token X, LSU Never Walk Alone, Shahid Shah, Kevin Evans, Doughboy, Grim Reaper, Melvin, Quinton, Liverpool Girls TV, big up yourself, Casual Citizen. You've got Imitaz, and you've got Brian, Luca Talks Ball, Selector Spence Kenya. You've got John, 123, big up yourself, John. You've got Graham, big up Graham as always. You've got Timothy, who corrected me with my pronunciation, big up yourself, Timothy. Daily Stats, Tafsir, Anfield. You've got Andre, big up yourself. Nelson, even though he's a Tottenham fan. David Shakespeare. And then you've got Lucky, big up to Lucky. Zany Edits 8. Anthony, even though it was a bit of a rude comment, but big up yourself. Anthony, Tommy, Adnan, and Philip Bidwell as well. Big up yourself, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I will be doing another show later on tonight. I'll be doing a show at 10 p.m. UK time where I'll be doing a preview of Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. I'll also touch on the comments that have come from Jurgen Klopp as well as Arne Slot from his press conference. And look, if there's any breaking news regarding transfers, we can talk about it. And if you want to continue the transfer talk, during that show, feel free to get involved in the live chat. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.